question for you guys. Was he right? Because he basically repeated the same thing.
Yeah, he waffled.
It didn't.
Did he waffle?
It was an
Yeah.
explanation I really hadn't heard explained in that way before.
Do you know what? Like, because that doesn't sound like waffling. That was an artful dodge of
Yeah,
a
it was an
couple of
artful dodge.
questions.
Absolutely.
Because the guy asked him he asked him a joke question, be like, he's never going to be able to answer this, and then like everyone laughs, ha ha, and then he asks his actual question, but then Trudeau's like, no, 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 no. Second question, that's a lot trickier than the first question about what quantum computers are. I'm going to answer the first question.
Which is hilarious. The military situation in the Middle East is more complicated than quantum computing.
I mean, quantum computing, there are definite answers you can give about things.
Yeah.
But
Quantum computing. So screwed.
is that, well, it's actually a clever joke, Rob. I like that.
Thank you. I worked hard on it.
Yeah.
There's no uncertainty in quantum.
Honestly, as far as the explanation, like I always understood the benefit of quantum computing to be the computing speed, but his explanation was more just data storage.
Well, that is a benefit.
It's a benefit, sure, but I don't think that's the main benefit.
Because my understanding was like the quantum bit or qubit is so much smaller than the existing transistors that we have that you can just, if you have that many more qubits, you get faster computers, more storage, yada yada yada.
Mm-hmm.
That not, because he was saying, there's a lot of uncertainty in quantum state, so you can store more interesting information, and I mean, I guess you could have like a cluster of qubits and an overall like a 60% spin up, spin down, because that's what qubits work with, is spin, so far as I know. Or at least, Rob, did you take that course, the molecular magnets?
Yes.
Course?
That was the only graduate class that I quote unquote failed because I got a D in it. But I was much better than that.
Yeah, I took the undergrad version of that course.
Yeah.
So it was the same everything except I didn't do a presentation, which I'm so happy about.
Yeah. On the thing of the question, he answered it, like we have gone on for several minutes now and not really answered. And that's what I feel any explanation of quantum computing that takes 30 seconds is going to end up devolving into something that just goes on for several minutes or an hour. But a 30-second version of the answer, that was a pretty good answer. But in general, like quantum computers involve entangling.
Yeah, the entanglement
together.
aspect. Yeah, and that's what I thought it mainly relied on, or the main benefit it was the entanglement and that speed of information.
Yeah. And so it's not really, like it can store quote unquote information, but you wouldn't use it, like it's not a hard drive.
Right.
It could be technically more like RAM, I guess, but the main benefit of quantum computing right now is the fact that you can solve different kinds of more complex problems with it faster. Like there are certain types of problems that involve either large numbers of particles or like if you wanted to simulate a brain, it'd be much faster to use a quantum computer than a regular computer. But even then, we've only managed to entangle something like, I think it's like 5 qubits or something. Like it's a very, very small number.
Yeah.
Like, and that might be out of date, so it might have gotten a little better by now, but it would be like less than 50.
We had a story recently within the last year and a half, of that they were able to entangle, I think, a record number of particles. I can't remember the number, how recent it was, but it was recent enough that we've talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
If I could jump in, what is the benefit of entanglement?
So basically, like he explained that part pretty well. The fact that the particles are entangled mean that you can end up getting, rather than just having binary, like off or on, you can have a bunch of states because you end up getting a superposition of states between the particles, and then you can, like the qubits can be assigned any value between 0 and 1, and it can occupy multiple values, literally any number between 0 and 1. And it can occupy multiple values between 0 and 1 at the same time. like you have to have a certain understanding of like quantum theory, which in itself is really hard to explain, and then you're like, yeah, and also it can be a computer. So it it devolves really quickly into
It's more my failure to understand how it applies to, I want to say machine theory, but I don't think that's actually a thing. Like machine language.
yeah. It would take specific, like either an operating system or a specific hardware that was written for it to actually be applicable.
Right.
As far as I know, quantum computing itself as a field is at a really, really nascent stage. So I'm not even sure they're actually running any actual experiments on like entangled bits, but they're at the very, very fundamental stage.
But
because my understanding of it based on the molecular magnets course we had was that they are actually trying to design qubits.
Yeah.
If not in merely Mirajesu's lab, then in other organometallic or not organic. Yeah, wait.
Yeah.
Inorganic? Or no, it's definitely organometallic.
Yeah, organometallic.
Details. But they're definitely trying to develop qubits. But the big problem there is you need it to have a 1 or a 0, so spin up, spin down, etc. But you need to ensure that it's not going to just flip on you because quantum things are wont to do that.
Yeah.
That was also probably the best description of tunneling that I've ever heard in that class. Yeah, that's like the first time I really had an intrinsic understanding of what a quantum tunneling effect could look like.
You mean merely?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you might have meant Trudeau, and I was like, I did not get that at all.
No. I just looked at his hair, and I had such an intrinsic understanding of everything after that.
So, yeah, there's a couple of videos that I've seen from, I forget if it's Numberphile or 60 Symbols or Veritasium, but there's a couple interviews that one of those guys has done with quantum physicists, and they're talking about quantum computers, and they explain it really well. So I'll find some links on that.
Please do.
Learn up.
Yeah.
Because, yeah.
It's been a long time since I watched any of it, and this video did not make me want to go and refigure it out because all that listening to him explain it for 30 seconds did was make me remember how complicated it was.
Yeah.
But,
I remember solving. Do you remember solving the matrices in Mirali's class?
No, that might be why I did so bad.
There were matrices of matrices, and I was just, yeah, it was bad.
Well, technically, any matrix can be a matrix of matrices if you just break it up as such.
So Nick, you
nice.
No, I'm still on that topic. You took his class as an undergrad, which meant that you had to take both parts, right? Like as a grad student, I only took half of it.
Oh, right.
And so I didn't get to the matrix part because I was gone because I did not.
Peace.
But the fact that it got into matrices makes me really happy. Matrices makes me really happy because I hated linear algebra and I did not understand matrices, and so I probably would have done even worse in the second half.
It wasn't as bad as I'm making it sound, but you made a matrix of all the possible spin combinations.
Yeah.
And then I feel like you made a matrix of those matrices, or you had a three-dimensional matrix, and you had to figure things out from there. Like it wasn't actual like matrix math. It was just so many spin states.
Yeah.
So many spin states.
Okay.
And that's why you have computers do it for you.
Yeah, for sure.
No kidding. It's like you do one undergrad or grad class once so that you understand what it's doing, and then you let the computer do it for you because there's no good reason to. That was actually Tom Wu's teaching philosophy. He went, so now that you understand what the leapfrog method is, you're going to let the computers do it because there's no good reason for you to waste your valuable mental resources on such a thing when a machine's going to do it better.
Well, it's the same way like in differentiation or integration, it's always numerical methods that are used that computers use. So when you're trying to solve equations explicitly and having like an actual algebraic equation for something, that's good to know what it is. But once you get into the actual engineering and research side, you're looking for numbers, so you're going to use numerical methods, which are just approximations of the actual process. Like you put an equation in, and it's just going to use numerical methods to solve for x. It's not trying to find x equals and then have an actual algebraic equation. Yeah. Like you can, but that takes a lot longer and isn't really what you're looking for anyway.
Yeah.
So we'll come back to that when you guys have learned a bit more, and when I have figured out again that I don't know what I'm talking about. Mike, you have a few pieces of, these are not follow-up, but small discussions you wanted to have about recent news pieces.
Well, there's some follow-up.
Yeah,
there's two follow-up pieces and one minor piece.
Yes.
The small discussion section.
There you go.
You wanted a segment? You got it.
The screening room, which was our Netflix of new release movies, I guess you could call it, for that Sean Parker of Netflix or not Netflix, Napster and Facebook fame.
Yes.
He's releasing this product or a service, I guess. And I guess there's this thing called CinemaCon, which is like an industry exhibition for
Comic-Con
movie theaters.
For movies is how I heard it described.
It sounds like it's for like industry people to go to and talk about stuff. It's not really a place for just fans to go and look at movie stuff.
No, I think it's both. Like,
is it?
Comic-Con is the same thing. It's industry, but a bunch of people also, like that's where a bunch of trailers came out.
Okay.
Trailers for upcoming movies came out.
Okay.
And they screened them there first. I think it's like pretty publicly well known for people who love movies.
Okay, it could be. I've never heard of it before reading about it, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's this event called CinemaCon that they went to, and we're holding some closed door meetings with industry people, and everyone who was there publicly critiqued the service.
Mm.
And again, it makes sense that they would, because this place is catering to theater chains and the selling and marketing thereof.
Yeah.
Versus this thing called the screening room, which is trying to take the place of, quote unquote, at least as far as they see it, take the place of movie theaters. Whereas I'd argue that it's really not. It's just filling a gap where people who don't feel like going to a movie theater anyway, they'd have an option. And that's kind of what we talked about when we first brought up the screening room service, and how I think we kind of all agreed that it wasn't going to take the place of people going to movies. It was just filling a gap for people who wanted to see a new release movie but weren't going to go see the movie in the theater anyway.
Right.
So anyway, the industry people critique the service, but they actually do have backing from people in the industry as well. So it's not like they have no support, but it's just there's still a lot of what's the word for it? Divisiveness? Divisive? Yeah. In the industry, but it sounds like the release of this service is inevitable. We're just a matter of time before it comes out.
Yeah, it's inevitable, but it depends. Like, it's kind of like Netflix in that you don't know what you're going to get on it.
Yeah.
They'll launch the service, but you might get 1 or 2 movies a year at the start.
Yeah, and the price point is still fairly high. It's $150 up front for the device, and then $50 per movie. So it's we'll see, but there's still more developments coming in, and I'm excited to see where it goes. And I'd hope that it at least creates a new market, or at least a new type of service where you'll have more competition, where hopefully the price point does come down a bit. But yeah, that's one piece of news from this past week. Another piece of follow-up where the FBI had hacked or cracked the locked San Bernardino iPhone.
Hold up, I wasn't done talking about the screening room.
Sorry. Okay, go ahead.
$150 and $50 per movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could absolutely see like universities being all over that, like a student cinema group or something like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone just chips in at the beginning of the year, like $5 for 100 people, and yeah, you'd be off to the races.
That's actually a good point, and I don't know legally what types of stipulations will be in there.
Yeah.
Because basically, whenever you buy a DVD, it says not for public use, not for blah 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 blah.
Like, it's usually not for profit. so long as like it's not meant to be a profitable group,
Right.
like you should be fine. Or
Right.
even like Blake's law firm in town for their Christmas thing that they did. It was offered to all employees and their regular clients. They just rented out an entire movie theater, and there was free drinks, free popcorn, free breakfast, like actual hot breakfast sandwiches,
Yeah.
and like just swag that they were giving away. They did all that just so that everyone could see The Force Awakens.
Huh.
And they had like a couple kids movies just in case you had really young kids with you,
Right.
but like I'm sure Blake's has a lecture theater where they could have just, well, maybe not that many theaters, but
Yeah.
I'm sure a major corporate client who wants to entertain, employees, clients, whatever, could just say, "Oh, hey, hate going to the stupid movie theater? Come see us instead. We'll let you see it for free." And it's like $50 for a movie for a corporation. It's
Right.
nothing.
I actually hadn't thought of that because now that you're mentioning it, when I was a kid and I was in church youth group, and you'd have movie nights where you'd have the gym and then just a projector and they'd show whatever DVD on the thing, right? And in this case, you could have a similar thing where you're showing new release movies to hundreds of people. And I don't know, and when we were doing these events, it was $5 and you get like food and drinks and whatever. So I don't know if that's something that needs to be considered from a legal aspect, because I can't see theater chains getting on board with that.
Yeah.
Because I'm imagining people are sitting in their living room, maybe 10 people watching a movie.
Yeah.
Versus, like you said, a whole amphitheater or a gym filled with people.
And like the other thing, I know I had one university professor who would be all over this. He was the prof for music in the movies, which great course, wonderful course.
Of course.
He had a home theater set up with like a projector and like a nice surround sound setup kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he said like he just doesn't go to movies anymore because he recognizes all the faults in the projectors there.
Yeah.
So, and he's also a prof, so he could definitely do that, I'm sure. Stuff like that. Corporate clients are always just...
Yeah.
They make the world go around, basically. They're the reason the Toronto Maple Leafs are the richest franchise
right.
in all of the NHL.
Yeah.
Because, like, when you say every game is sold out, like, half of the boxes are for corporate clients.
Right. Yeah, like, at that point, when you're starting to set up your own theaters for people, like, you are actually taking business away from the movie theaters.
Yeah, then you're just a theater chain yourself.
Right. And I'd almost, not that I'm not on board with that as a consumer, but I can, from the industry perspective, I can see how they might be against that if they've thought of that, which I'm sure they have.
Oh yeah.
Like, if
I'm sure they pay people a lot of money to think of such things.
That's actually interesting. I hadn't thought of that before, but it'll be interesting to see where that goes, and if they'll have stipulations in their agreements when you buy this box. It's like, will not be used for audiences of more than X number.
Will not
of
be
people,
used for wooing clients.
Yeah.
Yeah, but where would you draw the line? That's another interesting question.
At the word wooing.
Definitely.
Like, I don't even think it's a matter of making money off of it, but you almost have to say this box will not be used for audiences of more than X number of people.
Right.
Right?
That'll be easily enforced.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, but they have to put it in there. But yeah, who's going to actually enforce that, right?
Yeah.
But,
So you were almost on the San Bernardino phone.
Yeah. So unless, if we don't have anything else to say on the screening room, the FBI has, I guess, come out and said that they've tipped their hand a bit to how they got into the phone. And they brought it to a group of hackers, and I'm assuming these are actual hackers, not just hackers in the good with computer senses people tend to use the word.
We're saying like white hat hackers.
I heard it described as gray hat hackers, as in like they will sometimes do for profit, but mostly they're trying to help.
Like mercenaries?
Yeah, kind of.
So
online.
yeah, and the I guess the whole big thing in this is that these hackers discovered or had discovered before and brought it to the FBI. I guess that's the way it reads anyway. That there was a software flaw in the 5C software that was running this operating system, and that's how they were able to exploit that and get into the phone. But so far, the FBI hasn't brought this flaw to Apple's attention in a sense of, if this is the flaw, here's how to fix it.
Right.
And I think their argument would be, well, it's only a flaw with this phone running this operating system. That's like only a couple million, so it's I don't know. This story just gets weirder because it's a very like two-sided thing, and I don't know what side I'm on anymore.
I think it makes perfect sense given my confirmation bias and what I already thought. It totally fits in. Like what was it? The All Writs Act that they tried to invoke to get Apple itself to crack their phone. Like, as soon as there was a big public uproar and it seemed like they weren't going to be able to get it, they just got someone else to do it.
Yep.
They just went, fine, I guess our attempt at setting a legal precedent isn't going to work.
Right.
Let's just crack it like we could the whole time.
Right.
Yeah.
But then I don't know, I guess you could say that the FBI might have procured a group of hackers to do it, but it almost sounds like these hackers made a point to discover it on their own and then brought it to the FBI's attention.
Well, they probably already had it. These kind of exploits, especially, I think this one they were saying was a 0-day exploit. Like
a which?
A 0-day exploit,
oh, okay.
Which is like it's I guess hacking.
For listeners who might not know what that means,
it's true that they might not know. So it's like my understanding, and maybe my understanding is not exactly right because on a technical level, like I'm not a hacker, but it's an existing flaw that can't really from the day the software comes out, it's in there, and it's the kind of thing that you can't patch. So it's like that. Nick, do you have a better understanding of 0-day?
I thought 0-day was something completely different, so I'm going to look it up now.
Okay.
I thought it was.
I probably thought the same thing you did, Nick.
Okay, so there's a 0-day vulnerability refers to a hole in software that is unknown to the vendor. This security hole is then exploited by hackers before the vendor becomes aware and hurries to fix it. This exploit is called a 0-day attack. So that's more what I thought it was, in that, like, in days for which this vulnerability has been known, they knew about it on the 0th day.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I thought it meant they exploited something in the software where if you modified something in like the dates, like how there's like the Linux,
right?
There's exploit. What's that?
Go ahead.
Like the Epic, there's bugs in like the Epic date and all that kind of stuff, or kind of like Y2K type bugs where the software hasn't been designed to handle certain types of dates, and you can like exploit stuff that way. Never mind.
My understanding of the date thing was, like, if you go back before Linux Day 0, which was like 1972 or someday in 1972,
right?
That it was like often there were little kind of bugs in code that dealt with dates before that.
Right.
Like I think Apple had one either late last year or early this year that was just a weird bug that bricked your phone temporarily if you set the date to before 0-day.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were talking about.
Oh. Okay, so Wikipedia. It is known as a 0-day exploit it is known as a 0-day because once the flaw becomes known, the software's author has 0 days in which to plan and advise any mitigation against its exploitation, bracket, for example, by advising workarounds or by issuing patches, bracket.
Okay, that makes sense. So in theory, we don't actually know if these things are 0-day vulnerabilities. We just assume they are, because no software vendor is going to say, yeah, we knew about this for months.
Unless you're the NSA. Or companies working with the NSA anyway.
Yeah. Because in theory, what white hat hackers do is they discover flaw. Like anyone who's working for like the Chrome bug bounties. There are people who like professionally just find bugs in software that has bounties, but they typically disclose things to the company for 30 days or 60 days or something, and then at the end of that period, they go, okay, we're releasing it to the public now because you had adequate time to prepare for this, and people need to secure themselves if you're not going to do it.
Right.
But that's the only thing that wouldn't be a 0 day. Otherwise, the company might know. They might know there's a flaw, and they're getting to it, but it's only.
But it wouldn't be 0 day if they knew about it.
Right, but they would never say, oh yeah, we knew about this for a really long time, unless they were saying, oh, we knew about it and we were fixing it. So you could have a thing like Adobe presumably has flaws that people know about, but they don't become 0 day exploits until someone tries to exploit them. And then they would be patched, and that's probably why Adobe needs to be, like Flash needs to be patched so often. It's because it's fundamentally pretty insecure. But it's not a 0 day exploit until somebody actually exploits
It's not an exploit unless it's an exploit.
Until somebody exploits it. Whether it is a bug, but it's an exploit when somebody takes advantage of it.
Let's join the tautology club.
I don't think that was a tautological statement, but I'm happy to debate that.
The first rule of the tautology club is the first rule of the tautology club.
So
let's all sign up and join for the tautology club.
Mike, you had one more piece of news here before we move on to the actual show.
This is the minor news. What did you call it? Random news corner. Minor news segment. I actually saw this as a expectation, I guess, within various tech bloggers and stuff, that with iOS and watchOS, it's natural for there to be a Mac OS, because right now it's known as OS X, which I always thought was like OS 10.
OS 10.
But they've
OS
released
10.
multiple versions of OS 10 that have been actually quite different, that they probably should be on 11 by now, but they haven't.
So this is similar to what Windows is going to have to do now that they've kind of decided to stick with Windows 10. You're going to have Windows 10.1.
Or Windows 10 something.
And then you're going to break. It's going to break out like that. So that's what happened is they called it OS, like it's written OS X, but it's OS 10. Like they used to have OS 9 before it, and then there was a whole generation inside of OS 10 where they had 10.1, 10. And now they're at 10.10, and I think 10.11 is. They're either on 10.11 now or it's coming. Like people are just like, this is getting ridiculous. Why are you doing this?
So there's hints that it's going to become Mac OS, because there's documentation from Apple that refer to the Mac operating system as Mac OS. So it's really not giant news, but it's more like it's about time that they've wrapped it all into like. It's annoying because whenever I look up, if I have a problem with my Mac, I'll look up, OS X, installing whatever on OS X, and it's like OS X, whatever. It's like Leopard and Mavericks and Yosemite and whatever. It's like, this doesn't make things easy.
But you can just look it up on the version that you're running.
I know, but most people aren't like, oh yeah, I'm running Leopard.
I think most people, the layperson, would only know that they're running like Mavericks or Yosemite or whatever it is, El Capitan.
But it's not even. I don't know.
That's how that's how a lot of Linux forums work.
Yeah.
So I'm running Ubuntu.
Zesty Zebra.
So that's probably what they're going to do for Zed.
Yeah.
But okay, so that's the thing. Apple's not following like an alphabetical progression.
Right. No, they're following landmarks.
Yeah. But it's
California progression.
In no specific, like, you know what I mean, though, right?
They're just picking names. It's code names. They're arbitrary.
Right. But with Android, at least it's like, okay, I'm on the latest operating system, so I know I'm on M or N or whatever. You can't do that with OS X.
No, OS 10. It will bother people if you say OS X, even though it's written that way.
I don't care.
I agree.
Tom Wu used to refer to it as OS X, so I don't think you're going to get worse than that.
No, probably not. The interesting thing is that with this naming thing, the hope, I think, for some people is that they're going to unify. I mean, for a long time, the talk has been they're going to unify iOS and now potentially Mac OS. And in theory, the numbering is coming close to being the same. We're on iOS 9, and we're on iOS 10, or sorry, iOS 9 and OS 10.11. So it's like the numbers are slowly catching up because iOS tends to progress faster. But at a certain point, you will get a Windows 10-like moment where they can say, here's a big round number, and now both of these versions, our mobile and desktop operating systems, are on the same number. And then they'll do like a big incremental thing where Mac OS or OS 10 shifts to Mac OS. Because it is Mac OS 10. Like, it already is Mac OS. They're just styling it slightly differently in the same style as iOS and watchOS and tvOS are.
That's marketing, all right.
Yeah. It's completely meaningless, but that's how people refer to things.
Although it would be totally cool to have just one operating system across all platforms, and then you could call it something like Unity.
Yeah.
Or Windows 10.
Or Unix or something. But
so did we all get the joke there about Unity? Okay.
No, I was making a Windows 10 joke, but.
Oh, the Ubuntu's what is it? GUI? It's the desktop environment. It's called Unity because it's the same on tablets and desktops and phones, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, that's ideally what Windows is trying to do with Windows 10, though. That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ubuntu Linux leads the way.
It's true.
Well, yeah. So all the Mac platforms run on some variant of Unix. Like, it's not really that big of a deal. Like, these things are only skinned differently. Fundamentally, they all run pretty much the same way. They just kind of take advantage, or I guess taking disadvantage is a weird way to phrase it, but based on the limitations of the platform, they kind of cut things back as necessary.
Yeah. My smart TV runs on Linux.
There you go. Yeah, at least one executive has publicly used the name Mac OS as early as about a year ago. So I think internally that's already the naming system, and it's just a matter of time before it actually becomes something they announce.
Right.
So the fact that it's in code is not as big a thing because, yeah, anyways. It's probably happening. It's almost certainly happening. It's just a matter of when they actually publicly do it.
Rob, speaking of operating systems, you've seem to have had experience with another operating system that's in beta right now. Why don't you tell us about that?
Another operating system in beta?
Yeah, or developer preview, maybe not beta.
I'm not sure that I agree with you. I'm not even sure what you're referring to.
Oh my god. I'm trying to segue for you, Rob.
I realize that, but I don't know what you're segueing to.
Yeah, I think Mike's segueing to his own story, maybe?
You have something here about Android N.
I'm not running Android N.
Have you not tried it?
No.
Oh, then what are you talking about? You're saying... Never mind.
This is what I'm saying. The segue doesn't work because I'm not running Android N. It'd be interesting to talk about it, but as a segue...
Well, it's in here as a story you have, Rob, so I'm trying to segue to it. I'm sorry.
So, okay, let's talk about Android N then.
Nick, you are new co-host. I'll be new junior correspondent.
Welcome to Future Chat. So, Rob, I hear that Android N is already really fast and fluid with some inevitable bugs. Why don't you tell us more about that?
So this is a story that has been in our notes since probably the day it came out.
Interesting. Well, I'm glad we're getting to it.
Nick, I'll give you some notes on co-hosting. So Android N is the evolution, basically, of Android. And from what I've understood, and again, I have not run it on any phone because I don't have the Nexus phone, and they're the ones that are having access to this super early before any kind of normally this would be released at Google I/O, but they released it like early March. Was it even February? Like, it was super early. And from what I understand, some of the biggest things are even on phones. It enables things like split screen mode,
which, by the way, is already possible on many Android handsets.
And many big ones.
Yeah.
Not really any.
What do you mean not any? I didn't say any. I said many.
Sorry, not many. Like when you say not many, I mean like 2, 3 maybe.
Well,
Like it's not a
models
common
wise,
thing,
but a lot of people have them.
I guess.
But sure, fine.
But
Continue.
so, Mike, maybe this is a good thing because it's a good thing that you have a phone, as far as I understand, that does it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't seem like having split screen from the screenshots I've seen of Android and in general.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like running more than one app is particularly useful just because of the tiny amount of space you have to use it.
Yeah. The only times where I've wanted to use it, and I use wanted because on my phone anyway, it's kind of clumsy to try to initiate, just the way the gestures work. Like, it's not a button that you press to just launch it. Like, you can do that, but anyway, that's its own thing. But the only time I found it useful is when you're trying to, say, enter something into one app that you're trying to copy from another, but you're not able to like copy paste text, or you're trying to like explain something to someone in one app, and you're trying to look at a picture of something. I don't know. It's when you're trying to. It's the same idea if you have 2 monitors at your computer, and you can kind of refer to one while working on the other.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. There isn't a lot of real estate to use between the 2 apps. And it's not like I've ever wanted to like have a video running in the background while I'm like on Facebook or something.
Not on your phone.
Not on my phone.
On a tablet, it seems like it's more useful, but on a phone, it's just not enough. You could have it running in the background, literally not visible, and just be listening to it.
Yeah.
But to have it taking up half the screen seems odd.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Especially if you get a keyboard involved.
A keyboard. Oh, right. Yeah. Well, because the keyboard already takes up half the screen, pretty much. Yeah.
Especially in landscape, it takes up like 60 or 70% of the screen.
Yeah. I can't even use my phone in landscape with the keyboard. It's horrible.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm intrigued the fact that they introduced Android N so early before it supposedly, like maybe they're going to be releasing it at Google I/O. Because it seems super early if they're releasing it in developer preview like 4 months after the last version came out for the first time. So unless they're speeding this up, it seems like an odd thing to do.
It would obviously be for the developers, because right now most people aren't even on Marshmallow.
Right.
And they're already releasing N. But if it means that once N is released, like apps for it will work properly, so it's not like developers are trying to fix bugs on, Lollipop still, while Marshmallow is being rolled out, and they have to fix bugs for that too. So it's almost like they're trying to give developers a lot more time to get their apps working.
Yeah. By the way, what is N going to be called? Like Nougat?
I think Nutella is in the lead.
Nutella would be the corporate tie-in. Nougat I've heard thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
I'd say like Nanaimo, obviously, but it's not obvious because Canada.
Sounds delicious.
Oh, it's diabetes in a bar. It's beautiful.
I mean, all of these things, all these candies really are.
No, like Nanaimo, it's just that's a special little
just all sugar.
Little example there.
Yeah. It's like eating a can of frosting.
No, it's richer than frosting though.
It really is.
If you are not Canadian, please Google a recipe for Nanaimo bars, make them, and then thank us.
They're very delicious, but entirely rich sugar and.
As all great desserts are.
I don't think they'll be able to spell Nanaimo if they're not Canadian.
That's spelled the way it sounds.
Yeah.
Is it though?
Nanaimo? Yes.
So, Mike, did you have any thoughts on Android N? I mean, presumably you're not going to be getting it. Did you actually end up getting the Marshmallow yet?
Not yet. They've started. I think Samsung's released it into the wild. I guess presumably onto the carriers to release to the handset because not Nexus, Samsung is the one that pushes it to the phone. It goes to the carrier. But so it's just a matter of time before the carriers push it to the phones.
Yeah.
But
Nick, did you end up getting a new phone? I feel like we talked about this, but I don't actually remember what phone you had.
Oh, I don't think I've been on the podcast since I got a new phone.
no, I
I
haven't.
have an Nexus 5.
So do you have Marshmallow then?
I think so.
It's true. It's not a very big change between.
No.
I had once I turned the phone on, I had exactly 1,000,000,005 updates to go through.
Okay.
Like I was just sitting clicking through updates for like an hour.
Yeah. So
'Cause
when
it's
you
been
install
on
an
the market
app,
so long.
are you able to select which permissions to give it?
When you install an app, you are asked to grant permissions as the app needs them.
Yeah.
Okay, so then that is Marshmallow.
Or the other, and you can just say like, no, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
And I think you might be able to edit it later, but I haven't fooled around with it that much yet.
Yeah, my understanding is you can deny it, and then if it needs to use it, it will tell you, hey, this needs the microphone. Are you okay with us using it? And I think you can still say no, and then it just won't work, that function that you're trying to do.
Yeah.
But I want that. That's the thing I'm most excited for, because there's some of these apps that's like, why do you need that? Like I'd rather be able to use the app, and I trust the app to not do anything bad, but I'd rather just say no off the bat and then just have it bug me about granting permissions as needed.
Right. I mean, yeah, that is a default is a good practice. That's what iOS has done for quite a while. When it needs something, it'll ask you for it.
Yeah.
And at that point, you say, go for it.
Yeah.
So, Mike, you have a story in here which I'm hesitant to talk about because though it is Canadian content, it seems pretty irrelevant to 99% of people. BlackBerry.
Well, we are the 1% after all.
BlackBerry has released their, at least tentatively, spoken about plans for the next year-ish. Did you want to talk about what they're planning on doing and why?
What are you talking about?
Uh-oh.
I don't understand.
What? Wait, Mike.
Wait, which story are you talking about?
BlackBerry plans to release 2 mid-range Android smartphones in 2016. Why don't you tell us about that?
Oh, okay, sorry. Oh, thanks, Nick. Yeah.
No worries.
Yeah, BlackBerry has apparently not done market research prior to recently, because they felt it was a good idea to release like a $900 Canadian smartphone.
Yes.
And people are not as willing to spend that much money on a phone, especially a BlackBerry phone that is running, well, it's running Android, I guess, for that matter. But it's just they were targeting a specific clientele, but then they apparently were talking to people after the fact and said, I want to buy your phone, but that's too much money for me.
Yeah.
Like, you'd think you'd do that discussion prior to designing and marketing and selling a phone, but
You'd think.
I guess better late
Unless
than ever.
they're corporate clients?
They are corporate clients. That's the whole point.
Oh.
It's that a lot of our enterprise customers have said to us, I want to buy your phone, but $700 is a little too steep for me. I'm more interested in a $400 device. These are enterprise.
$400 devices anymore?
No, not really. There's a couple, but
Yeah. No, not high-end ones, like not flagship phones.
right. So what they're complaining about is the fact that smartphone prices have risen, not the fact that BlackBerry put out a phone that's the same or cheaper.
Okay, so if I'm buying an Android phone, there's a lot of mid-range options for someone who doesn't want to spend $700 on a phone.
Right.
Yes, I agree that the high-end phones are $700. That's not an absurd price.
They're either old phones, like the old generations, or like the Moto E or G, whatever. There's one cheap Android phone from Motorola, but the rest are really either old hardware or like $700 to start. Which means in Canada they're about $900 to start.
Samsung has a lot of mid-range phones. They're just not marketed. If you wanted to buy them, and you buy them through a carrier, but they are there.
What makes them mid-range?
Maybe not even low-range. I wouldn't even
What
call
makes
them
them low-range?
Just their processor, their RAM, the storage.
is older?
No, just not as good.
Okay.
Like you'd have like a 1.2 gigahertz processor instead of a 2.4 or a 1.9 or whatever. Like, and with 2 gigs of RAM instead of 4 or whatever.
Right.
It's
Like, yeah, it's a discussion about whether worse hardware is considered old, even if it's technically manufactured recently. Because it seems to me like
well,
if someone made a desktop processor that had one core and it was like, I don't know, 1.6 gigahertz, I wouldn't say, wow, that's a new mid-range processor. I would say that's an old processor that is new. It's that discussion. Like, you either have to get worse than the top of the line hardware, or you have to pay significantly more than it seemed like you used to have to pay because subsidy changes.
Yeah. Well, and like you were saying, or buy a year-old phone, which for most people is probably okay.
It's probably okay, but
I'm okay with that.
A corporate client, unless they're specifically looking to cut costs, isn't going to look for older hardware.
But the difference is a corporate client is trying to find a phone that their employees will be okay using. Yeah. They're not going to want to throw it off a bridge, but also it's literally only there for email and phone calls as far as the corporation is concerned. That's the only reason that they want their employees to have phones.
That's disappointing, because in theory that would mean you could get a flip phone and it'd be just fine.
You probably could, well, except for like emails.
Yeah, I had email on my flip phone.
Oh, yeah, that's different, Rob. I had email on my phone too. Yeah, because it took like 5 minutes to load an email on those phones.
Oh, really? Mine was other than being a terrible experience, was fast. Like, it was WAP email, I think. It was just like, if you remember the old like flip color screen phones, they could get email. It just looked was terrible.
Even if you're talking about that, that's a phone that an employee would not be happy with. So they're trying to find that balance.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Although, if you're going down the happiness route, people may not realize it, but they'd be very unhappy. Like, if you had to use this phone for work, you would use it for work. You wouldn't be happy with it. It's just your work phone.
That's how I'm using my phone right now.
Exactly.
I don't need an iPhone 5S. I had my 5S 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was, within a year of being released.
Yeah.
Even 6 months, and all I used it for was for email and phone calls and texts.
Yeah.
Because it was
if you had a brand new phone, you'd use it for more than that, but because they gave you an older phone, that's all you're using it for.
And companies don't want their employees using their phone really for anything other than work stuff.
Yeah, which is a whole other discussion, because that isn't a very great plan, in my opinion. But that's another discussion.
Yeah. So anyway, getting to the actual story, BlackBerry discovered this, and they're saying, yeah, we're planning to release 2 mid-range smartphones in 2016.
Yeah.
So I guess more along the lines of a Nexus 5X price point. Even lower, because if they're talking $400, then yeah, you're talking even lower than the 5X.
Right.
I guess if you're using old technologies, then it's probably a Nexus 5 level type phone.
Right. If BlackBerry are being honest with themselves, and I'm not sure that they are, they're either going to release a mid-range Android phone that nobody is happy with because other mid-range phones are better, or they're going to release a phone that they're calling mid-range but still has a pretty high price tag. Because you can't just come into the market with a kind of middling device and expect to get market share. You have to start off high. Maybe you lose some money along the way, but I don't think a company like BlackBerry that needs that cash right now, because they're had a lot of bad press recently. You have to start high or have something new to offer. If you just put out a phone that, I mean, I guess they have the differentiator that they have a keyboard, like a hardware keyboard.
Yeah, and one of the phones, they said one of the phones will have the keyboard, one won't.
Exactly. But if that's your only differentiator, I'm not sure that that's going to woo anybody, unless it's very cheap, but then it's going to be a terrible phone. So.
It's not the only differentiator, though, because they have the security aspect that they're trying to sell.
Okay.
And that's where they have their BlackBerry evangelists going around convincing companies that that's something worth valuing.
Right.
which may or may not be
I
actually
mean, as
true.
far as I know, like the whole part of BlackBerry being secure is that you can set up, like BlackBerry has set up a secure like encryption key, right? And so there's only I think a couple people in the world that hold that key, and I think like BlackBerry probably has it in a vault somewhere, and maybe the RCMP have a copy or something like that. I think that came out this week.
Okay.
Do you guys not hear that
I
story?
no, I haven't heard of this.
Okay.
I did not hear that story
But
either.
since 2010 or 2011, the RCMP has had a copy of the encryption key on for at least BBM, and
Okay.
so any BlackBerry message that isn't encrypted separately by an organization has just been publicly accessible by the RCMP for whatever. Like so on the in the period, the 2 month or so period, where Apple has been saying, no, we're standing up for encryption, we're not building a backdoor. The BlackBerry has for years just been like, here, RCMP, here's the key to every consumer phone, like BlackBerry phone. You can just have carte blanche access to messages. Yeah, and so this whole thing about BlackBerry releasing Android phones and them being the most secure thing, it's like, yes, they're secure, but there's a master key out there. And if the RCMP have it, who knows who else might also have it.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't hear about it, and so presumably there's no kind of black market for these codes, but they're out there, and we've seen things like that get out before.
Did we all watch the new CGP Grey videos
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
about encryption?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to check.
Yeah.
About how encryption is actually important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I actually felt like maybe this is just because I have a bunch of knowledge on this, but so that to me felt like the most. I don't know if I want to use the word most. Maybe least groundbreaking CGP Grey video. It was like more a video that he felt like he had to make.
Well, it's kind of like his net neutrality video.
Yeah,
Like,
it is.
I must illustrate to the people why this is important.
Mm-hmm.
And I also liked that he, I like that he pointed out specifically that the slippery slope fallacy doesn't apply to this legal argument because
Right.
the law is based on precedents.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a good video. I just felt like I didn't pay as much attention as I usually do to his videos because from the beginning I was like, I already know all this. But this video, obviously the audience isn't necessarily people who already know a lot about encryption. It's people that have no idea what the whole FBI Apple situation is.
Yeah. Or they're familiar with it, but they've only heard one or secondhand one side of the story or secondhand stories.
Yeah. So along with BlackBerry, I've never owned a BlackBerry phone. I've used a couple of them briefly enough to know that I detest them. Like I don't BlackBerry or hardware keyboards, if you want one, are fine, but I could never actually use one. As soon as I stopped having to use T9, I was so happy.
I've considered I've wanted to go back to T9 just to see if I could pick it up again because I was really fast with it.
I was thinking about T9 earlier this episode, going, that was a weird time in
It
mobile
really
history.
was.
Yeah, but I got used to it enough where even like flipping between the different words, I knew which one. I had how many times I had to flip the word to get the word I wanted, depending on which word I wanted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like I don't want cabin, I want this word, and I just flip it twice because I know that the first word is wrong. But anyway.
No, I don't know. I would have gone for hardware keyboards up until swipe started to be a thing on Android phones.
Yeah.
Like once I got swipe, I was like, well, I don't ever want a physical keyboard again because swipe is just so much faster.
Yeah.
It's also why I write in cursive.
Yeah.
See, and Maria doesn't use swipe, and whenever she sees me using it, she's like, I have no idea how you're able to type like that. It's beautiful.
I forget who it was recently, but I started swiping on my keyboard, and it was Kai's family from the southwest of Calgary.
Yeah.
They were like, what are you doing? Like, swipe. You swipe between letters, and it figures out what you're trying to say. They're just like, That's great.
Yeah.
Power of Linux, miss.
What do you guys both use the Google keyboard?
Yes,
Like
we
Yeah.
both use the Google.
the Google keyboard, the swiping one.
Yeah.
I guess the only Google
Yes.
keyboard.
Yeah.
Okay. I have been using for a couple of years now SwiftKey, which is also it's cross-platform
Yeah.
app that syncs all your stuff between things. And on Android, SwiftKey is weirdly so much worse than the Google keyboard.
Yeah.
They actually have 3 channels. They have the actual version, they have a beta version, and they also have I think it's called a neural network beta. So where it's more like an alpha project. And recently the SwiftKey regular version is terrible. Like it's very glitchy even on relatively new hardware.
Yeah.
But the beta version is pretty smooth. And so I've been using the beta one, and it's comparable to the Google keyboard, whereas on my iPhone, I use the SwiftKey, and it's incredibly smooth. Like I use it, it's so much faster than any other
really?
keyboard that I've tried. But yeah.
I've tried SwiftKey on both Android and iOS, and I couldn't stand it. Like,
What
I don't
about
know
it?
why. I think part of it was just not being familiar. Like, I was just used to the Google one, and I like the look and the feel of that.
Mhm.
And I think I think the prediction was annoying. Like, the way that it suggested words wasn't what I liked, if that
Okay.
makes sense.
That's good.
I am having a bit of a problem because I feel like this phone is slightly wider than my old one.
Yeah.
And my finger patterns are still tuned
Yeah.
to the slightly narrower phone.
Okay.
And there's a learning curve.
Yeah.
Right.
What I'm finding with my Note, I have to like hold it like this. Oops, where am I? And then like actually like use like a hand and go like this. I can't just use my
Oh,
thumb.
yeah.
It's too big.
Right. So yeah, I'm in conclusion on the BlackBerry thing. I'm unhappy with BlackBerry, but I've never been happy with them, so nothing has changed.
Yeah. If they released like a $400 device that had comparable hardware to what you'd expect from a phone from that year, you know, like
this
their
year.
their own version of Nexus 4 when the Nexus 4 was released. Like the Nexus 4 was a super cheap phone relative to what it offered.
Yeah.
Right?
It was. I was so
Yeah.
pleased with it.
So if they release that similar type phone, which my hopes aren't high for, but if that is what they do, then I'd buy that phone. Not that if I were in the market for a phone, I'd buy it.
Yeah.
And I'd be interested to try it. Just granted, it's still running Android, so it's not like it'd be entirely different from what I already
Sure.
have.
Nick, let's change directions completely and talk about your, I guess, story about Vancouver.
Building in Vancouver specifically.
Yeah.
I would say this would be a small discussion section story, but I mean it doesn't really fit in follow-up, so it wasn't there.
Doesn't stop
No,
me.
it's I think it's a condo building, but it's LEED Platinum certified, and it already meets the city's 2020 carbon neutral and 2050 100% renewable energy goals.
Okay.
And like they're saying for a unit, how big is it? It's a 77 unit, 6-story building, but it's so efficient that your heating bill could be $60 or less per year.
Wow. When I read this,
Yeah.
just your clickbaity headline, it
Yeah.
says $60 for heating. I assume that was per month, which the
Which
clickbaitiness
would
was
be
behind.
fine in
It's
like
fine, but
Yeah.
it's a little on the high end for depending on the size of the place.
Well, for a
Yeah,
condo, yeah.
Yeah.
$60 a year. Like it's pretty solid because like in Ottawa we were spending, it was electric heating, so it was like a couple hundred a year.
Yeah.
Or each utility bill was a few hundred. I think.
Utility
Yeah,
or heating? Like electricity, I mean.
electricity,
Right.
because the heating was those stupid electric things next to
Yeah.
a window,
Right.
which this unit also has, but electricity and water is included, so
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
it's fine, I guess.
So can you tell us a bit more about what this building, like, it's a planned building or is it actually, does it exist already?
It's being built, as
Okay.
far as I know. So I skimmed this earlier. Extra insulation, air barriers, independent ventilation, and heating systems in each unit, energy efficient windows, and unique framing that allows it to recapture 50% of heat and light back into energy.
Hmm. Wow.
So I'm assuming they must be like coated windows, like coated with a solar
Yeah.
thing, one of those organic solar sheets. I
Mhm.
want to say panel, but it's not a panel.
The thing to keep in mind with all of this too is, in essence, you're just paying for the heating up front in like an investment sense, and then it pays for itself with the heating savings.
Yeah.
Like all these
Says
extra things. Yeah.
the extra cost to meet those green standards is about $8 a square foot, or about as much as it would cost to install a traditional building-wide hot water heating system.
Right.
Right. Which I didn't really understand because
Yeah.
I thought they'd have to do that anyway. It almost sounds like they're doing that instead of that, but like,
Details.
I find this really interesting because from what you're describing, it doesn't really sound like there's a whole lot that's brand new here. It just sounds like improving existing ideas to the point that, like, to the extreme where it's $60 a year.
I
Seems
think
revolutionary.
the difference I think is a developer would rather build a standard system that doesn't use these extra energy capture things and just pass that cost on to the people renting and say, well, this is your heating bill.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas these guys are investing in having those savings built into the building, and then they're still passing those savings on to the tenants,
Right.
I guess.
Well, I mean, the rent is $1,200 a month for a studio and $18 for a two-bedroom because lol Vancouver. I mean, that's comparable to other buildings, but on utilities and things like that ends up making it more affordable.
Right.
Yeah.
And isn't sustainability nice? Isn't this something we'd like to see?
It is. I'm really curious to see other cities implement these kinds of targets because as far as I know, this is not something that every city has, like plans for 2020 and plans for 2050. As far as I know,
2050 and 20, or I thought it was 2050 and 2100, but
oh, I
It was
see.
2050.
no, 2020 and 2050. Good
Yeah.
for you.
Um, I'm very intrigued because if cities do, like other cities in Canada do have these targets, I have not, like they've not been well advertised because I haven't heard anything about it.
Yeah.
But
And
that's
So that,
fantastic.
like, these buildings are more expensive to put up, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
it generates jobs, like with these green specialist
Hmm.
technologies. So I mean, I don't think it's that big a deal that construction costs go up a little bit
No.
because it means you're employing more people and, you know, lots of interesting stuff is happening.
Yeah. I would be really curious to live in a place like this. I'm not sure you'd get the same, like obviously they did some kind of analysis if this building doesn't exist. They did some kind of analysis to figure out that it's going to be $60 a year. And Vancouver is a place that doesn't really get too cold in the winter, and that's when
Right.
you'd really need heating
Right.
costs. So I would be curious to see what similar improvements to a house in Ottawa or in a colder place in the winter would end up costing. Because I feel like it'd be
Right.
more, but the
Yeah,
improvements would be interesting.
I did think about that because I mean I've even seen occasionally I'll look up like YouTube stuff for building greenhouses in Canada.
Yeah.
And then one's like a greenhouse in the winter in Canada. but then it was on like Victoria Island, and I was like, that doesn't count. Like they basically strung some Christmas lights up in their greenhouse, and the added heat kept it above freezing, but it was only like a couple degrees below.
Right.
So I was like, thanks for coming out, guys, but like you don't understand cold.
Right.
It's like if there's a day below zero in Vancouver, the rest of the country goes on a Bane rant like, you merely adopted the cold. I was born in it, molded by it. By the time I experienced warmth, I was already a man. You know.
The thing that gives me hope with this project is the fact that it's going to take these types of efforts to cause real change as far as carbon emissions and that kind of thing versus, you know, people buying a Tesla or, you know, putting solar panels on their house. It's the big, large scale, you know, developments that are, you know, designed right off the bat to be, you know, lower carbon emissions.
Yeah.
Or just actual existing vehicle manufacturers making their vehicles less carbon intense.
Right.
But not that I'm against, you know, individual efforts. Like it's fine from a moral standpoint, but from an actual effectiveness, it's not really doing a ton.
It'd be really nice if like this kind of thing started to happen.
Yeah.
And then it quickly becomes such a good deal for the consumer that consumers start demanding it.
Right.
I think anyway.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So, you guys have anything else to add to that, or we maybe have a brief after show?
Yeah.
We could have a brief after show.
Cool. Well, in that case, I will thank everyone for listening to this week's Future Chat. You can head to unwindmedia.com/futurechat to learn more about the show and listen to past episodes. And we'll be back next week to talk about more science and tech. See you guys next time.
Ciao.
Toodaloo.
Alrighty. Guys, I have some follow-up news. Actually,
Real-time follow-up?
It's not follow-up. It's post-show news.
Post-show news.
I finally got a new thing.
We already knew that.
I got a new iPad.
Is that another new iPad or the same one?
I got it Friday. I wanted to get it for a long time, but I got it on Friday.
But we already knew this.
When did you know it from? I got it Friday.
I didn't know it.
You sent me a picture of Julia holding an iPad and saying...
Yeah, I got her one for her birthday.
Right, so that's why I said, is this another new one?
Yeah, this one's mine.
Oh, you didn't say that. Jeez.
Didn't ask.
I did. I said, is this another new one? And you just ignored my question.
Oh, no, I meant for me, this is the only new one.
That's exciting.
Sic Semper Tyrannis, Rob.
I
will address your questions if it pleases me, and this please me.
Nick, I love how your loss of bandwidth is so predictable with noon for me and 10 a.m. for you.
Yeah.
That I'm only going to get to listen to the glory that was whatever you said in the Bane voice on the edit and in the final version.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you'll get to it eventually.
Yes, I definitely will.
It is 10 o'clock, isn't it? And it's my cue to go audio only.
But so I don't know. I've had some thoughts on the new iPad because my old one was bought in 2011, late 2011, I think. I don't know if you guys care, but I am now coming on board with what everyone else has been saying for a couple months or a few months, that they have all these fancy new multitasking features on the iPad. And I'm at the point now where I'm just really frustrated that there are certain apps that don't have it. Specifically, we use Google Docs, Google Sheets specifically for this show, and Google Sheets doesn't support any of the multitasking things. So if I wanted to have Google Sheets open with, like, say, the internet, to be able to be live on the show, keep up with what's going on,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of click on to things and look for more detail. I just can't. I have to continue with the one task at a time kind of thing that I had before. But the amount that the speed is improved is ridiculous. How
Can you not
fast
just
it is.
like switch windows?
You can, but then I'm just like, this is no better than
Right.
like the dream of the future is alive for some apps, but it's glaringly obvious when something is broken
Yeah.
because it's not
Ah,
updated yet.
I believe the Galaxy Tab products have the split screen and
I believe that,
multitasking.
yeah.
And that one, again, I'm going off of my understanding of it, is those aren't dependent on the app itself. The operating system takes care of the scaling and
Yeah,
the arrangement, all that kind of stuff.
yeah. So for Android, they have had, I'll call it auto layout because that's the name that I'm familiar with on iOS, but it might be called something different on Android, where you build an app to an arbitrary screen size because there are so many different screen sizes. But for the longest time, Apple only had one size of thing, and then like one size of iPad, one size of phone, and then they added a second size of phone, but it was only like 72 or 100 pixels taller, and so you didn't have
Yeah.
to really change dimensions too much. But now they have quite a variety of different screen sizes,
Yeah.
and they have multitasking, which means any app can take up half of any screen. And so most apps, because it's been a couple of years, most apps take advantage of that and can easily adopt split screen multitasking.
Right.
But the ones that don't, they just don't. They either don't do it at all, like it's just not possible, or the app is broken in some fundamental way. Like for Feedly, for example, that's the one that's in between. It's enabled, so you can use it in split screen, but it just truncates, like it just cuts off whatever
Oh, okay.
flows over.
Can you scroll over to read
No.
the rest of it? Oh, really? That's even worse.
Yeah, so it's just like it's an in-between phase, which I get, but the hardware is such a massive improvement that it was totally worth it for me. And I'm whether or not these apps get updated, all it's going to be is frustrating. It's not going to be a deal breaker. There's also a weird thing where because sometimes you want to kick something to, like, say you're in Twitter and you want to click on a link to go to the internet, but on the other half of the screen you're watching a video. So I have Twitter and a video open, and I click a link. I would think that I would want the video to keep playing,
Yeah.
and I would want Safari or whatever to open in the same tab that Twitter was,
Yeah.
and then give me a backlink to Twitter. But what it does is it just kicks the video out and opens internet and Twitter. And so there's things like that where maybe it's just I'm doing something slightly wrong. Like the app that's on the left is the main app, and the app that's on the right is like the lesser
Right.
app. So maybe if I have Twitter on the left side and
Yeah.
on the right, it would take care of it better.
Right.
But that's the kind of thing where it's only been 2 days, so I'm still trying to figure out exactly how it's going to work best. But I love, like, there's also picture-in-picture, so I can open a video from my hard drive and just minimize it into a little thumbnail and, like, play a game while watching a video in a adjustable size screen, which is great. And I'm probably going to take this on the bus now. And it made me realize again, like I used to take my iPad on the bus when it was relatively new, like when I'd be commuting to work. But I stopped literally because my hardware had just gotten really old, and so it was faster to have my phone with me, even if it was a much smaller screen and I could only do one thing at a time. So I think I'm going to take this on the bus and just do like watch videos and that kind of thing, and just enjoy the fastness and maybe not even use my phone at work at all. Like just literally take the SIM card out, put it in my iPad, and go from there. Very exciting though.
Is that what you do right now? Is swap the SIM when you're using it on the bus?
I use a lot of data. Like I do have a second SIM card that is data only, but it's 150 megabytes for $10, and then once I hit 150 megabytes, it jumps up to $25, and I get more data. But
Right.
I don't want to do that unless I need to.
Right.
So I've been, if I'm going to use a lot of data, like if I'm going to watch videos on the bus, I'm going to want to have my SIM card in.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe your phone will start supporting tethering again.
Maybe, because yours still does?
Ours stopped when we switched from the Sony phones to the Nexus 4. It stopped
Okay. Wait,
tethering.
did you say it had started again
Yeah,
recently?
when we got the new phones, when we
Yeah,
got the Note 4s, it started tethering again.
and it still does.
Yeah,
Okay.
tethers
Yeah, I'm
beautifully.
hoping that mine does too then.
Yeah.
But
Have
I'll
you
have more
tried? Have you tried
thoughts.
recently?
I've tried. I tried when we last talked about it, so a few weeks ago. So I'll try again
Okay.
today.
But you still have the same phone though, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have more thoughts on this, but I'm gonna continue, like give it a week and maybe
Okay.
write about it and follow up with you guys. But new technology is my favorite thing.
Did you guys see that picture of the iPad Pro that I saw on the bus, like the giant one?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a bit too much for the bus,
It's
I
a
think.
lot. Yeah,
Again, it didn't seem like he was doing any sort of like photo editing or anything that was like work related, that he's
right.
actually using this giant iPad for.
Yeah.
He's just kind of watching something or whatever. It's like, I don't know. Guess it
Maybe
was
he's
cool.
just like Brady Heron and he wants the pro version.
Well,
Just
Rob, you
wants
have,
to be called pro.
yeah, he's a giant Pro version.
Yeah.
So you have the baby Pro, right?
Yes.
Rob, yeah.
Which I like. That screen size is not like that for me would be a laptop replacement type of thing, whereas this is an in
Right.
between thing when I
That's
don't want to have to
that's
click
what
that.
Gray does.
Yeah. Well, he has both.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah. No, doesn't he have three now?
Yeah.
Yeah, he has
But
three.
he has.
He did one as a Kindle.
Yeah. To be a YouTuber.
Jeez.
But yeah, as I mentioned, I'll soft introduce this. I've been looking at. I'm about to start blogging for myself,
Right.
not as myself. And so I've been digging into Linux and setting up WordPress on it, which has been a very fun experiment. And I'm looking forward to kind of writing more, not just personally, but about things. And so this might be the inaugural piece that goes up as my initial thoughts on this tablet. But one of the things that I see working really well is use like operating WordPress on here, because the Blogger app on any platform that isn't like a full web browser on a desktop computer is absolutely awful, but the WordPress app is pretty good. On at least on iOS, I haven't tried it on Android. Very excited though. So look out for that new blog launching. Probably when I guess when I decide to get the first piece up, I'll just launch it and then improve it as time goes on. Because otherwise, I could spend like years to try to make it absolutely perfect, like blog platform. But I should really just start writing.
Right.
Do you guys have any post-show stuff to talk about?
So last week I went to the garden show.
Yes.
Not the home and garden show, because the Leafs trade goaltenders when I go there. But no, so I've got Kaya wanted something to go in a little owl planter she has.
Mhm.
And so they had specifically mojito mint. So we've got a little pot of mojito mint going now. A little sprig of it broke off when I was transplanting, and I've taken to throwing a slice of lemon in my water bottle and taking that to work. So, was it Monday? Monday, whatever day it was, I had a sprig of mojito mint and a slice of lemon in my water bottle,
Okay.
and that was some pretty gourmet stuff. It was pretty great.
Nice.
Is
Yeah.
the mojito mint like sweet?
Honestly, like it's hard to describe unless you just say, "Have you had a mojito?" Yes, it tastes exactly like that mint. It's a little more. It's got a little less of the minty flavor to it, like the minty
Like this-
aroma almost.
Okay.
I guess menthol maybe. Is that
Yeah,
the?
that's kind of what I have in my head right now. That you're
I
just
feel like it's got less menthol and more like just robust flavor to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
I also have peppermint seeds. So I'd kind of like to try making some beverages with mojito and peppermint just to see how it goes. But just a little bit is me running out of potting space. So
Hence the greenhouses in Canada you were looking at.
totally, yeah. I would like to grow peppers year round is the long and short.
Yeah.
And I've also been kind of fascinated with combustion science and stuff like that. So I'd like to build a rocket mass heater to fuel a greenhouse.
Right.
Rocket mass heater?
Yeah, yeah. You have basically it's do you know what a rocket stove is?
No.
No.
Okay, so very simply, it's got a little box with like a grate in it, and then a chimney at the end of the box. So, I mean, normally you just build a fire on a surface or whatever, and it burns, and you put something over that surface.
Yeah.
But when you're doing that, there's a large section underneath that's getting no airflow, so it just turns into like ash or whatever, and you're not really getting as much out of the combustion fuel as you could be.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got a rocket stove, they have like some for camping applications now, but they're also trying to sell them to the developing world because you like put your fuel on this little tray. It's almost like a barbecue grate, but it's elevated off of the floor of the stove. So you get airflow going past it, but you get more pure combustion because the air is reaching every single part of the fuel.
Right.
And then you get less smoke and more energy. And so you just put something on top of the chimney,
Right.
allowing for airflow. But you can use less fuel, you get more pure combustion, and so you also get less air pollution because a lot of people have respiratory problems because you're sitting in your small shelter and getting a lot of smoke, and that's just not good for you.
Makes sense.
And it disproportionately affects women, yada, yada, yada. It's just not great.
So is it almost designed more like a furnace, and then
Well,
you have like the chimney directing the heat towards whatever it is you're trying to heat?
so that's a rocket stove, but a rocket mass heater, you have like a little hopper or something, then a channel that takes it to a chimney. So in that way, it's much the same. It's just built into the ground or something like that. So you have airflow all around it, but it creates a downdraft so that you can direct it more towards the exhaust or something like that. But so are you with me so far?
I think so.
Slightly.
Okay. So imagine like the letter J.
Yeah.
That's more or less what the burn tube looks like, except the bottom of the J is flat. So you start a fire in the bottom, like just light some newspaper or something like that, and pile sticks on top of that, allowing for a lot of airflow. So the flames are moving towards the chimney and not back up through the entrance.
Okay.
So
Because it's being drawn that way.
Yeah, you're getting
Okay.
draw that way. But then what you do is you put like a barrel, like an oil barrel or something like that, not actual oil, obviously, but you put that over top of the insulated chimney, and then you build an exhaust tube at the bottom. So what you get there is when stuff exits the chimney, you get a torus flow. But once you hit a certain temperature, the heat of the exhaust, and which really heats up the barrel, that starts a secondary combustion, so that any impure combustion products then get burned within that torus. And as they cool, they start to drop down and go through the exhaust tube. But you snake the exhaust tube through whatever, like something very heavy, like I want to say, what's that stuff? Cob. Like it's a mixture of like sand, clay, and straw or something like that. They build houses out of it. Anyway, if you don't know what cob is, it's easily Googleable. You could also snake it through like concrete or whatever, like a big brick setup, something like that.
Like
But
a
then,
heat sink?
yeah, the heat of the exhaust is absorbed by whatever this big heavy thing is, and then re-radiates the heat later. So
Okay.
it's just you're maximizing your efficiency basically.
Hmm.
So what I would like to do is maybe like build a floor to a greenhouse out of brick, but have an exhaust channel that just snakes through the brick.
Right.
Yeah, and then have the burn barrel inside the greenhouse, but the fuel hopper outside, so you're not creating a draft within the greenhouse. That's my grand plan. How
And
long was
this is
that?
gonna be in your rented apartment in downtown Calgary.
No, that's going to be when I have when I have land,
Okay.
maybe a retirement project. I'll just
Right.
draw the blueprints for the next 40 years.
Okay. I was wondering what the timeline of this was because I was like,
Yeah.
that sounds like a fairly involved project to be doing.
It definitely does.
I don't think it would be like it would take a while, especially if it's just me doing it. But you could like lay a foundation, build a brick, whatever exhaust system, platform, floor, whatever you want to call it, or just like lay down some ventilation piping with exits so that you can actually collect any fly ash that gets through there, and then pour concrete over it or something. Maybe, I hope.
Right.
Like it's doable.
Oh no, it's doable. It's just for an apartment to be.
Yeah.
No, it's not happening in an apartment. That's the unfortunate thing.
Yeah.
But I feel like it could. I feel like it could work. I really do. And I could have peppers all year round. Maybe not all year round in this area because we just don't get enough light in the winter. But
Right.
you know,
I've got an after show story for you guys,
Okay.
and then that should be enough to finish this off because we're already an hour and a half.
yeah, God, like how long did I go on about my fry?
So you guys remember when I got the Mi Band, right? It's
Yes.
like the
Yeah.
$20 fitness tracker from Xiaomi, Xiaomi.
Tell me.
That ended up getting lost, or at least the tracking part did. The band was fine, but the thing that was inserted into the band got lost. So after that, I actually liked the idea of it and that it was a good price point for someone who's cheap and just wants a daily indicator of what was activity like.
Yeah.
So just recently, I was looking for another one because what happens is when I'm sleeping and I want to wake up, it takes me about a good hour to actually wake up, so I have multiple alarms set. And
Okay.
and I often have to get up before Maria does, and she was getting disturbed by the number of alarms I have and also how early they go off. So we were trying to figure out what options there were, and I was like, if the band that I have, or that like a lot of fitness bands, will have the sleep tracking as well that can wake you up, either at a preset alarm and or using the sleep tracking smart alarm functionality.
Yeah.
So I was looking at other fitness trackers that were on the market right now, and have your Fitbits that are $100, 150, 200, and you have various other equivalent products from other companies. But then I saw there's one from this company called Razer that apparently is like a gaming company, but
Yeah.
they have a fitness tracker too, and their entry level fitness tracker is like $30. It was $30 at Best Buy on sale from like 70 or something like that. But they released a new one. So I actually picked up one of these $30 ones, and all the reviews were comparing it to the Mi Band that I had before.
Okay.
So it's kind of, I knew what I was kind of getting myself in for, but after a day and a half of using it, I'm going to return it because it stopped connecting with the app very well, and it wasn't working the way I wanted to. And it has the ability to like notify you when your phone gets notifications, which is cool, and it has LED lights that light up different colors depending on how you set the apps up as. But some apps weren't sending the notification, incoming calls weren't getting notified, and it kept disconnecting from the app. So it's not worth keeping, in my
Not
opinion.
super stable, but good
No.
in theory.
It's the theory was good, but the implementation and the reliability of it wasn't up to par. So gonna have to find a different solution. But I like the idea of that it could wake me up on my wrist.
Yeah.
But
I had a dream that the Apple Watch was $150, and I bought one, and it was great.
It sounds like a good
I
dream.
dreamed a dream of Apple Watches gone by. And
So
I finally bought one.
that was it. That's all I get.
My health tracking had been had. And I knew what my basal metabolic rate was.
That was the other cool
But
thing.
the day rolled around. And I realized it was a dream.
I asked for this.
I was so disappointed
The fitness trackers now have heart
that
rate
this
trackers on
song
it.
does
and
not
it's pretty good
rhyme.
Thank you, Nick.
What's happening?
Nick's had a lot of coffee and he's in a singing mood now.
Sounds like it. What were you saying, Mike?
Oh, just that a lot of fitness trackers now, they have the heart rate, the optical heart rate built into it, the same way that the Apple Watch does.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm interested to try out a band that has that. Because there's another one from Garmin called the Viva
Smart?
Yeah, that one. Yeah. Viva Smart HR. That looks pretty cool. But I don't know if it's worth it.
Right.
For what it is. It's like it's trying to be a smartwatch, but it's not.
Yeah. I might try to get an Apple Watch when the next one comes out, finally. Hopefully it falls around my birthday so I can convince other people to get it for me. Not you guys.
I'd want a round Apple Watch. I would not want a square one.
Oh, wait. You want a round one?
If I were to buy one, I'd want a round one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't hold your breath, but it's a good hope.
I will hold my breath.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll say goodbye for this week, and I'm going to stop the broadcast now.